All right, producers, if you use AI to make beats, even if you use it just a little bit, you will get exposed. This man is going to expose all of you for using AI in your beats. And come to think of it, I've made videos showing myself using certain AI platforms in my beats. I used Templaar, I used Ace Studio. I was tricked into using Suno to make a sample, actually, and then flip that on a video. So in a nutshell, and you're going to want to watch this video, there is a way to detect AI. Even if you chop the sample, even if you speed it up, it can still be detected. And there are multiple entities, multiple people, multiple companies that are developing AI detection software. And it's not just meant to detect whether a song includes AI, but where it's sourced from. So like I said in my last video, there's a reason Sony is developing AI detection, because it's not just about, a platform like Bandcamp using this technology to detect AI and then banning it from their platform. It's also going to be used by these large labels, even small labels, maybe even individual artists, to find infringing works, because we know that the larger AI companies just steal training data from existing artists' songs, and those artists and those labels and the publishers, etc. They want to go after the people doing that and get paid. I mean, you read the terms of service on these AI platforms and they say, hey, if you get in trouble for copyright infringement using our platform, you're on your own. Now, I have an AI model with Lemonade. Is that going to get detected? No. That's something that's powered by Scorch. It's not generative AI, and it's absolutely ethically trained because I'm endorsing it and my name's on it. So people hit me up and they're like, there's an AI named after you. I'm like, yeah, I know. I have equity and they're a good company. Spawn, similar situation. Ace Studio, similar situation. But these big generative AI platforms are easily detected. And as a matter of fact, well, there are some surprises in this conversation. We talked with Rasha Rahman, not the Rasha that Bobby Shmurda mentions in the song that got everybody jammed up. At least I don't think that's him. Hey, I'm just here reporting on what's happening in what I believe to be the most important development in the music business ever.
So in terms of detecting AI, how does that even work? What are you scanning for? What makes something evidently AI?
Yeah, so it's really fascinating when you start looking under the hood of these songs and throwing them into these different models and analyses and getting the results. So the best way I could describe it, because it's not about musicality. If I were to just look at musicality, AI songs sound musical. They play the right chords and notes most of the time. And so
sometimes,
yeah, it's more actually that humans. Here's a good example with vocals. Humans, they have three states. You're either breathing in, you're either holding, or you're breathing out, right? And so there's this constant cycle going with our breath, and with that, there is a pattern that ends up getting caught, and how we sing, how we perform, ends up being biologically connected because of that. Now, AI music is trained on a bunch of data, and then it's told to fit this they basically shape it to fit a working generating song. And so when you do that, you're basically taking the averages of all these different slices. And so if you think about human music, a song can be tapping on a table to a full-blown production built in a studio. But AI music tends to be a smaller set of that bound. And then it kind of all just sits in that space. So if you were to visualize where human music sits and where AI music sits, it ends up being in different places. So we basically train a model on where those places sit. And then we can do a predictive analysis of, okay, this song that's never been seen before from our model, okay, it's moving like that. That's weird. And so we'll say that's AI. And then for human songs, they kind of move in a similar way, and they kind of have a flow to them. So the cool thing about that too is that there is no solution. AI music, even when it gets better, you're basically building another space for it to be better in. Whereas human music can fit everywhere and can go in all these places, but still stays patternistically human. 11 labs. They're actually training on fully ethical. Their training model is fully ethical because they license and pay out their artists, and so they have really really good sounding models. And I was really worried. Like I was like, oh shoot, this sounds so human. But it actually ended up being the most separated from the batch because it was so perfected.
So what's the accuracy at now?
Yeah, so I actually shifted from my original scaling was about like how many AI songs it gets detected, but what is actually more important is being able to not accuse a human song at all. That is actually what the real standard should be, is get that number to 0% if possible. And then as that number is low, how much AI songs can you try to filter out from the space? And so before I had like a 10% FPR, so 1 out of 10 songs was getting falsely accused. But in the past couple of weeks, we've been doing some really cool research, and I say we, it's just me. I've been doing some really cool research, and I found out that there's a way to look at this stuff in a completely different paradigm than there's a couple other competitors that are trying to do the same thing. And they're all telling me like, oh, it's impossible. You can't get the false positive rate down. But on a recent benchmark I did on 2,000 unseen songs, so not seen to the model, never been trained on the model, I had a 0% false positive rate with about 50% of the AI songs detected.
AI is a spectrum. I can't stand when people say AI is a tool, because I'm like, AI is not a tool. AI is a concept. And then from the concept, there's a framework. And then there are these individual tools that, may or may not really fit the true AI profile. So there's, on one side, there's Lemonade, right? And that generates MIDI, and it's powered by software, and it's ethically trained, et cetera, et cetera. And the output is straight through a VST. So I doubt that gets detected.
Yeah, well,
whereas something like Suno absolutely gets detected. UDO absolutely gets detected because they were all unethically trained, and they're these huge, I guess, LLMs, and they have very specific patterns, and et cetera, et cetera. But there are so many things in between, like these automated MIDI drummer generators that people swear up and down are AI, or auto-tune is now AI, according to a lot of these weirdos. So what's getting detected, what's not?
Yeah, so the way we see it is from like the same kind of from like a composition level, because at the end goal here is, so we partner with another company, and I don't think I'm allowed to talk too much about what they do yet because they're still somewhat in stealth, but they basically have a way to connect with these AI generators and then tell what is based on whatever's generated, the probability of training data material to it. What that does is it enables that song that's generated to basically have like, okay, this is 80% Michael Jackson. And so what we can then do is, let's say they just got let's say they typed Michael Jackson instrumental. The probability is 80% Michael Jackson. And then they take that to their DAW, and then they record vocals on it. They record, let's say they strip the drums and they add their own drums to it. They program their own drums on top. Now the song is technically half its vocals and drums are human, and then the rest is AI. So a typical AI detection tool like Deezer's tool and a couple other people, what they built are classifiers, and classifiers will fail when you try to, like, if you try to use like a stem separator, which is AI, but it's good AI. Like, most people don't treat that as unethical, and I think the way that I've been seeing it is there's AI that can generate things, and there's AI that is just like helping whatever's already been created. And if it's already been created, then I have no problem with using AI to do whatever with it. But if you're using AI to create, then I think that's where like my own mission comes into place. And so it just depends on if it's being generated or if it's being like, so if you are generating music, there's some VSTs that can straight up like take a sample you're working on and then just extend it with more music. That is generative, and that will be detected by the model. It won't be attributed to anyone because it's probably not, or it's probably unethically sourced, and we won't probably have a way to do that. But if it comes from the major music labs, we'll have a way to tell.
How about vocal synths? Do those behave in similar patterns as AI?
So say vocal cuts or like
Vocal synths, like I forget. There's a vocal synth. Well, there's a studio, for example, where you're playing each individual note. And a lot of them are integrating different types of AI. So this is above my pay grade.
Yeah, I don't know exactly. I mean, so what we do is we basically we do separate at stem level in our detection tool. And like I said, a lot of those stem separation tools actually increase a ton of artifacts, and a lot of those AI detection tools cannot detect those. But because of that new paradigm I talked about earlier, we are able to detect individual levels and if there's any fingerprints or anything on it. And so what we'll see is like a vocal layer. Like, when you use a stem separator, all the vocal elements, even like outside of the lead vocal, will still get attached. So we will be checking that. And so if that has any of that AI funk in it, it'll say some percentage of AI.
So identifying a beat that was generated by AI is I'm assuming it's the exact same process. But when you initially described it, you talked about like how we breathe. And so even with just the sounds being generated by AI, like you kind of detect it in the same way.
Yeah, because we like a sine wave and the wave form of it, plus when it's placed, when a drummer hits a drum versus, and even if it's a sample, when you make the sample, you're taking an original drum kit, or you're taking a synthesizer which is using physics. So it's not just biology, but it's also physics. Those two things exist in the real world to create sound. Even the instrumental versions of things, they're harder to understand by the ear. And I actually have a new website. I'm building a new web page which presents you with 5 AI human songs so you can challenge yourself. And I tried it myself, and I noticed that the harder ones to detect were the non-vocal ones. But from the technical view of it, you're still generating the same way you generate vocals. And so they're all falling in that same mathematical box.